Don Brewster is one of my heroes. Don and his wife, amazing man and wife who founded Agape International Missions about 12 years ago or so. In 2005, they founded it, and AIM means Agape International Missions. They have a restoration home there in Phnom Penh. They have 500 Cambodian staff working on their team. He told me the other day they touch about 12,000 people every month. Is that right? Every month. What began as an effort to restore children rescued out of sexual slavery expanded into a holistic anti-trafficking organization with 12 projects that rescue, restore, and reintegrate survivors and prevent exploitation. Today, AIM impacts 10,000 Cambodians a year. Prior to starting with AIM, Don worked as an executive pastor at Adventure Christian Church in California for 7 years. He received his Master's of Divinity from Liberty University and his BS from William Jessup University. Please join me in welcoming Don Brewster.
Well, good morning, and thank you again for being here and staying till I got up. I really appreciate that. I don't know if you're aware, there's a new law in Minnesota dealing with anti-trafficking conferences. Every speaker must begin with a video. And so not wanting to break that law, we're going to start with a video here. But let me give you, to set it up a little bit, human trafficking, sex trafficking happens all over the world, right? There's no place it doesn't happen. But the context in which it does happen can be very different. So we want to show you a little video to give you an idea of the context that we work in Cambodia.
International investigators are working to stop a growing and very disturbing trend in which hundreds of thousands of children are forced into prostitution. Dateline NBC has spent the better part of a year looking into this illicit trade in a place with a notorious reputation, Cambodia. Here's Dateline's Chris Hansen.
Child sex trafficking. The very idea of it is so profoundly disturbing. But in reality, it's an active global trade, fueled by predators willing to travel halfway around the world to destinations like this dusty village in Cambodia.
Child sex trafficking in Cambodia.
Phnom Penh is really ground zero in the illegal sex industry.
Inside one of Svay Pak's many shopfront brothels.
Svay Pak, the epicenter of Cambodia's child sex trade.
This is an area known as Svay Pak.
On our way to Svay Pak,
we went to a village called Svay Pak.
It's the most notorious brothel district in Cambodia.
In broad daylight, her mother says she's willing to make a deal.
For a clientele with an insatiable appetite for children.
Sex slaves bought and sold on the black market.
11-year-old virgins being openly sold in storefronts.
He could introduce us to really young girls.
Still 30 and 2 girls? Happy New Year! Happy.
How much 3 girls?
3 girls, 90.
Now, it's improved a little bit, right? There has been some significant progress made in that, but it's still there. And what's different, one of the things that's different about Cambodia is that pedophiles come from all over the world to buy little girls. And even today, that's still continuing, although we've been blessed by God with some great progress. But I want to see just what happens every day in this village still as men come from all over the world.
Can I have you?
What could I find sex with young girls?
Girls? How old do you want?
Young.
How old?
What's the youngest?
Huh?
The youngest.
I don't know. How old do you want?
10.
10 years old. Okay.
8, 9, 10, 11.
Well, what do you know? You know, good house or a good spot?
Good house for the girl. How old do you want? Like under 10 or older than 10?
Older than good.
Yeah.
Can I have you?
So when you see that, right, you have a gut reaction, right? Deep in your heart when you see men that will come and boldly come up and just ask for little girls, right? And so initially, I figured the solution was a baseball bat. There's still days I believe that. Right, but that isn't the solution. And it is a complex problem that we're dealing with in Cambodia and dealing anywhere in the world. And so where I want to go from that context in Cambodia is to share that over the 12 years, which is a pretty significant time in battling sex trafficking, not many people have been involved that long yet, that we've learned some lessons. Many of them we've learned the hard way. But we believe God has given us a way of attacking this issue in which significant progress can be made. And you can take the principles that we've garnered in Cambodia and apply them anywhere in the world. So we're hoping today to give you a little bit of that, and then also speak to you individually, how individually you can have a global impact in fighting sex trafficking without ever leaving your home. So that's what our goal is. And so, as you can see by the slide here, there's 3 components, and actually our district attorney kind of talked about that already. And if we're going to attack a complex program like this, we have to be certain that we're hitting each part of it, right? Supply, demand, and the facilitators who make it happen. Now, in Cambodia, we started with just a restoration home. That's where we began there, and as time went on, we realized we could restore girls forever. Right? Girls could be brought in, they could really be healed by the love of God. They could be brought into a new life. They could be more than survivors, as Janine said. They can become modern-day abolitionists themselves. They can fight the problem, but if there's nothing stopping the other end of it, we'll just be restoring girls on and on. So there's 4 fronts on which we battle, and we believe that if any area in the world is going to be successful in fighting this evil, all 4 fronts have to be fought at the same time, right? And that's one of the missing components right now. That in so many places, 1 or 2 or 3 are happening, but all 4 have to be part of the solution. So there definitely needs to be rescue, right? And in Cambodia, it's a very different situation because we actually have our own SWAT team. There was so much corruption that was happening in Cambodia that we, living in Swai-Pak, had intel every day about what was happening. And we would pass that intel on to other organizations that did investigations, and we would pass it on to the police. And there was 18 situations in a row where the intel we gave was corroborated. The prosecutor okayed a raid, and all 18 times it was tipped off. So we said, well, how can we overcome that? How can we overcome the corruption? Well, wonder if we had a SWAT team. Our NGO actually had a SWAT team that could arrest people in Cambodia. Wouldn't that be awesome? Now, that's what everybody did. They laughed. They said, yes, that would be awesome, but you'll never get that approved. And again, it's just a combination of showing prayer and God's favor, because we presented a document to the General over Anti-Trafficking in Cambodia, a multi-page document that would give us the authority to have our own SWAT team who could arrest bad guys, who could kick in the doors, rescue girls, and put bad guys in prison. And I knew that he wouldn't initially approve it, right? There was no way that he would say, yes, that's a great idea, let's do it. So I was armed with many arguments. So when he said no, I was going to blast him. I was going to take him right out, and he would end up saying yes. So he painstakingly read each word in the document. I mean, it's killing me. I'm ready to fire at him, and he's still reading, and he gets to the end, and he says, let's do it. I was a little aggravated, to be honest. I felt like I'm prepared, right? I'm ready. But because of that, we are able to rescue girls, and we actually do outreach for older girls. Older girls are not held in chains, like the young girls are actually behind locked doors that have to be kicked in. And actually, it's much easier to free them than the older girls that are held by the chains that our first speaker talked about, right? Shame, poverty, all those vulnerabilities are really stronger than any metal chains or steel doors that hold in those younger girls. And so we do outreach into those places with actually girls who have been through our program, girls who know what it's like and can speak directly to those girls. But once they come out, once they're rescued, restoration becomes the key, right? And there needs to be a solid program that's available for all the victims who will become survivors and then more survivors. What we have found is that there's 5 areas of need that need to be addressed. And if those 5 areas are addressed, then God can work miracles in girls' life. And first, it just begins with physical needs, right? They'll come in, it's a physical need of safety. They're at risk, particularly in Cambodia, they're at risk of being, the bad guys come in to try to get them out of aftercare homes. So there needs to be physical safety, but also health care. They come in with many problems, including almost all with STDs. They come in malnourished, so there's the physical needs must be met. Then there's the psychosocial needs that need to be met. And we use what has been, research has shown as the best therapeutic method. It's called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, TFCBT. And Johns Hopkins developed it. It's cutting edge and is a secular program, and the psychiatrists at Johns Hopkins didn't realize they were following biblical principles. And that's why it's so successful. It's based on the cognitive triangle that says what I think determines how I feel, which determines how I behave, right? And that's really right out of the Bible, out of the overflow of our heart, right? That will that's part of our heart, our thinking, it determines our feelings and then our will. And for girls coming into aftercare, for most kids, they're hopeless, right? They feel that they're insignificant. They have no value because that's the way they've been treated. And this therapy, which I won't spend a lot of time getting into, but allows them to see intellectually and to understand intellectually that they have great value, right? That they're princesses, right? Daughters of the king. And so, but that's intellectual, right? And that's a good thing, but really being different, really being transformed requires the heart. And you know when that takes place? Is when they experience being valued, when they experience being treated with unconditional love. And while we have therapists and social workers and all that, in the end, it's house moms, right? It's the house moms is where they really experience who they are. They experience that value, that love. And my co-partner in ministry, the love of my life, Bridget, who is sitting right over there, is the one who has placed that love of Christ in the house moms through which God's love flows that transforms those girls' life. That's a key part of that restoration. So thank you, Bridget. But those needs those psychosocial needs are not just therapy in that sense. There's a need to be giving back as well, right? Part of that healing process involves giving back as they get to a certain point in their process. It gets to really, when is a girl healed? It could simply be stated that when they're able to receive and give love in a healthy way, then healing has taken place in their life. We also have to meet educational needs, right? So restoration and educational needs are critical, not just academic, but life skills, family skills. Many of the girls, actually almost 100% of the girls, come from bad family experiences, right? There's arts, and as I said, vocational training. And then there's the spiritual needs, right, which we're all about, right? As Christians, those of us here, and pretty sure we're a pretty solid Christian group here, but if not, we're glad you're here anyways. But it's the power of Christ that heals, right? And it's the power of unconditional love. Everything else are tools to deliver it, right? All the different programs, when we talk about the programs we have in Cambodia, they will meet a specific felt need in the community or the area, but the truth is, they are just conduits for Christ's love. And if Christ's love isn't flowing through them, then they're not going to be successful. And then reintegration becomes the turning point, right? The girls must be reintegrated, in other words, be able to go back into their society, into their culture, in a way that they're healthy and not only within themselves understand that they're honored and have value, but somehow to regain that in the culture, right? And that's not as big a problem here in the States as it is in Cambodia, because the culture just says any girl, for whatever reason, who has lost her virginity is a piece of trash. And that's just what she is. And what we found, what's been remarkable, is we have employment centers. That's a key part of our reintegration process, is girls have to have jobs. And this, again, the same would be anywhere in the world. They have to have an alternative economically to turn to. And so we have employment centers that make T-shirts. We didn't make these, but I'm sure we will next year. Sorry. Well, not really. But what we have found, that within the eyes of the community, we were worried a little bit, like these employment centers, they have all girls who were former victims, right? And would there be a cultural bias? Well, we've actually found in Cambodia, it restored their honor in the community, because they were working in a good place where they made a good living and were still able to help support their family. And regardless of how the reintegration takes place, there must be that opportunity, and there's one more critical part, and that is there needs to be a family, right? There needs to be, and without that, and most of these girls don't come from places where there's families, right, or there's a healthy family. Now, where there is that opportunity, we have social workers that work with the families. But in most cases, our girls, when they're reintegrated, are going back into where they don't have good family support. And as Christians, we say we're their family, right? But in many aftercare programs, once the girl's reintegrated, she never has contact with that family any longer. And so in our case in Cambodia, we have our social workers follow up every month with every girl after she's reintegrated. And we first said it'll be a year, then we said it would be 2 years. Now we said we're going to do that till Jesus comes, or they get a family that's theirs. Right? And that is so critical, because that kind of support and that Christian love is so critical beyond just the employment. And then the prevention part of it takes many forms. Right? We planted over 2,000 churches in Cambodia. And those churches are a place that prevention happens. Because you see, I don't follow my notes anyways. You see, the church is central. This problem of sex trafficking, human trafficking, is the church's problem. It's not the government's problem. It's not the state's problem. It's not some other organization. It is the church and the church alone that can end this. And part of the problem that we face is that we get to speak a lot of places, right? And people will tell us afterwards. Sometimes they like what we say. Sometimes they leave during it, so we're assuming they didn't like it at that point. But they'll come up and say, hey, that's good what you're doing, but we're not called to that. And I say, what? You're not called? Well, yeah, you're right. You're not called. You're commanded. Right? Because that's the bottom line. Standing with the oppressed and fighting injustice is a command of God to followers of Jesus Christ. Right? The call we have to determine. Right? That God will give us that call, and it could be anything, anywhere, right? But there's a call on us, and that's the problem, right? That's part of the problem now. That you guys are great that are here, but we are outmanned and outgunned in this fight in a horrific way. Do you understand that every day over 50,000 human beings are human trafficked, most of them sex trafficking and most of them women and children? 50,000 every day. Do you know how many are rescued every day? 213. 213 out of, you see the fight that we're in? And it's not I don't give you those figures that we should be overwhelmed. We should become hopeful because who our hope is in. Right? We've experienced some success in Cambodia. And I'll tell you why, is because God has given us favor and we have tons of churches that help support us. We have 40 teams that come over every year, 40 plus teams that come and help serve every year. We have donors from all 50 states. We have donors from over 50 foreign countries. We are unbelievably blessed, but don't let that keep you from donating. Because it's not enough. But anyways, the point is the success that we've actually given some recognition for is all because God has provided individuals with talents in the heart and the willing to serve and the willingness to use their resources in a way that transforms people, right? Because the prevention end, right? Men are the problem, right? Kidding around, I say I can end sex trafficking tomorrow. We'll just execute all men. I'm not for that. But it's heart transformation. Right? It's heart transformation, guys. Right? And that's one at a time. It's not going to end tomorrow. And it's not even going to get better worldwide unless we Christian men, man up. Right? We've got to get involved in this. And we have to be talking to our churches have to get. How many lead pastors are here today? Lead or senior pastors? God bless you, one. Thank you for being here. I'll tell you, pornography, right? Pornography is a gigantic issue that drives sex trafficking. You want to know the brutal truth that we don't want to say in church? That when a man watches pornography, he helps a little girl get raped. That's the truth. Right? And men I don't think the average guy watching pornography thinks that. I don't think he thinks that he's helping to drive sex trafficking around the world. I don't think he understands that the people that produce pornography are targeting children. They're targeting children in SWIPOC. When they watch cartoons on the internet, they get little pop-ups that come up. And then when they click on them, it takes them to a pornographic cartoon. And we've experienced recently a 5-year-old boy trying to act out what he saw in a porn cartoon on his 3-year-old sister. That's what the producers of pornography are doing. 89% of all pornography produced in the world is produced in this country. 70% of it in Los Angeles. I mentioned the other day we ought to bomb it, but we got a fundraiser coming up, so we're going to postpone it. But that's why the church is the only hope. And that's why we have to man up, man. It's easy for me to stand up here. I won't see you tomorrow. Well, maybe I will. I guess I'm still here tomorrow. But the day after that, I'll be back in Cambodia, and I won't see any of you. What it takes is conversations face to face, man to man, to start talking about what pornography does, because 2/3 of the men here today watch pornography every month. That's the statistics. 2/3 of all Christian pastors watch pornography every month. And it's the perfect tool of Satan to drive sex trafficking. It's a perfect tool because there's so much shame in it. So we hide it, right? We put it in the closet, and Satan rejoices every minute. And when somebody is brave enough to say that they have an issue, half the time they lose their job, right? Those are the men who are courageous and should be applauded and given all the help they need. If we would start doing that, if we would start standing up for women in that way, just Christian men, we would have a global impact. On the way home today, you can have a global impact. Stop at some coffee shop and start talking to some stranger about the power of pornography, how it's destroying families and children's lives around the world. Okay, none of that is in my notes, but let's go back to see if there's anything I wanted to say that are in here. Okay, how's my time? About 20 minutes, okay. Okay, here we go. So we're going to get back on track here in a minute. Okay. So we know it's the church, we know it's men and women too. We don't really have a hard time recruiting women to get into this issue, but men we do. And if we start making that change, we're going to see tremendous things. But we can do. I want to tell you a story about Hong Kong. We have supporters in Hong Kong, right? And how one person can make a gigantic difference without leaving their home. Okay, the first, a lot of you people know Benji Nolo, right? There's Benji. Never rescued a girl in his life. Never brought restoration to a single girl. Never helped reintegrate a girl. Yet he made a film called Nefarious that has impacted hundreds of thousands of people in this cause of sex trafficking. Did he have any special skill? Like, was he a therapist? Right? Was he a social worker? Was he a physician? No, he was a filmmaker, and he used the gift God gave him to make an outstanding film about sex trafficking. Well, there was a woman named Lois in Hong Kong who saw Nefarious. Now, Lois was dying of stage 4 cancer when she saw Nefarious. So she had a choice to make what to do with the few days she had remaining in her life. And what she chose to do is to show every person she knew the film Nefarious. That's all she did. People would come to visit her at her house, they're going to see the film Nefarious. Pardon me? Where can you buy that? You can buy it online, Exodus Cry. You can buy it online through Exodus Cry. We also have some videos. No, just kidding. So Lois, a dying woman, started showing that film. Right? The next person who saw it was this guy, James. He's a little too close with Bridget, but other than that, I like James. So James had none of the skills, you would say, is needed to fight sex trafficking. However, he's a successful businessman. And as a successful businessman, he had a lot of contacts. So what he did is he arranged for us some fundraising events in Hong Kong. Through those fundraising events, AIM received over $500,000, right? It started with a guy that made a film that knew nothing about how to care for a girl. It went to a woman dying of cancer that knew nothing about Cambodia, right? To this guy who knew nothing, right? But said, sorry, caught me off guard, 10 minutes left. Okay, so it went from James to another young man named Jonathan. I love this picture because it shows you can't be too cool to be involved in the fight against human trafficking. Right? Okay, so Jonathan is a 16-year-old boy. What can he do? Well, he's an artist. He painted that picture, and he auctioned it off and raised $10,000 to give the fight against human trafficking in Cambodia. The next person that saw it was a woman named Janice. And Janice, I got to tell the story. If I went 11 minutes, could we? I mean, what are you going to do, right? You're going to kick me off, honestly. So Janice is about this tall, right? And she's a really, really sweet woman. But we got a call from a Cambodian girl in China who had run away. She was trafficked to China as a bride. And I don't know if that's a big deal going on now because of the one-child rule in China. Far more men, actually 35 million more men of marrying age than women. So girls are being trafficked to China and being forced to marry. And I got to give you a short version, though. And so the two girls run away. And they somehow get our number in Cambodia and say, can you help us? And we say, well, go to the embassy. We'll go to the Cambodian government. And they say, well, we went to the embassy before, and they turned us back to the traffickers. And we said, don't worry, we're going to meet with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Everything will be fine. So we did that. We're actually in the office, but the girl calls back and says, hey, they're not helping us. They're actually trying to send us back to the traffickers. So I tell the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He doesn't believe it. I say, yeah, she's on this phone. It's what's happening. And so he calls back to the embassy. Make a long story short, the embassy refused to help these girls, okay? The one girl, they'd been 5 days without food and water, so the one girl said, just send me back to the trafficker. I can't take anymore. But the other girl hung tough. So there she is, and we knew Janice because she came to one of the fundraising events, and I knew she did business in Beijing where this girl was. So I thought she might know somebody who can get this girl for us. So I called Janice up, and she says, I happen to be in Beijing right now. I said, would you mind go get that girl? I mean, she's at the embassy, you can go get her. And she goes, no, that'll be fine, I'll go get her. Right? What she didn't tell me is she had to sneak out of her hotel because her husband would never have let her done that. So she gets out, right, and she gets to the embassy, but the girl, she's in this big limousine, right, the driver, and so the girl thinks she's a trafficker too, so she refuses to get in the car. So now we talk to her. We talk to the girl and say, hey, Janice is cool. You should go with Janice. And we think everything's done. And then I get a call from Janice a few minutes later. The guards are giving us a hard time at the embassy. They don't want to let her go. And so it's in a spiritual voice, I said, Janice, you're going to have to man up. I said, you take that girl by the arm, throw her in the back of the car, and you go. She goes, really? I said, really? And so Janice does it, right? So cool. Later on, she goes, I didn't really know what man up meant. So now she's got her, right? Problem solved until she called and goes, what do you want me to do with her? So now there was another man we met at a fundraiser that James had because Lois showed the film that Benji made, right? And he ran a hotel in Beijing. So I call him up and I say, hey, here's the situation. We have this girl. Could you put her up like in your staff housing? Because it's a 5-star hotel. I mean, unbelievable hotel. As a matter of fact, we went to get the girl later. We couldn't afford to stay there. So, but anyway, it's a really nice hotel. And so he says, yeah, we'll work it out. So she comes, right? Only he puts her on the executive level of this 5-star hotel, and she gets room service 3 times a day. Right, and it's kind of like a bird in a gilded cage while she's waiting, but still it's really, really cool. So, and we're not even done with Hong Kong. So now she shows the film to a woman named Esther. Esther has a public relations firm, and she says, oh, this is a great story. Let's have Don and Bridget be interviewed by CNN. And she gets us on CNN, which gets us more support. Now, that would be cool if that was the end of the story. But then there's Mary Ann. Mary Ann, you can see she's carrying the log. She's got the towel. She actually led a team of youth to rebuild a house for a family of at-risk kids in Cambodia. But she did another thing. She introduced us to a garment manufacturer who said, you need jobs? If you'll build a facility, I will teach you how to make sweaters that are sold to Macy's, Nordstrom's, and I'll provide I'll buy all the product. You don't have to worry about selling it, which is the biggest thing, right? So Victor did that. That's Victor with his daughter, and that's our employment center in Cambodia that you're looking at there, where we have almost 120 girls working, making great wages, full benefits, and all self-sustaining. Now, that wasn't the end of it. There was also one guy who came to one of the events. He wasn't invited because he wasn't a Christian, and there was going to be a Christian event. But he showed up, and it's funny because no one introduced him. Like we were being introduced to everybody. It's like we skipped by this one guy, right? But after the event, we were walking, and if you've been to Hong Kong, there's not a lot of great parking there. So you had a long walk to the car, and this guy came up to me and he said, I want you to know I'm going to buy you a car. And I thought he meant to give me a ride to the parking lot, right? And I laughed, and he goes, no, I'm serious. And I said, well, really? And he had heard I'd had a motorcycle accident and broke my leg, and so he thought it would be better for me to be in a car. So this guy bought that Highlander for us. And that's pretty cool if that was the end of the story. But the better part of the story is because he came to hear us speak, and because Jesus is with us when we speak, he decided to go to church, and a month later, he accepted Christ as his Savior. Everybody just home, right? Everybody just using a gift or experience God gave him. No special training, right? Just using what we already have. And that's the point. And when we do that, miracles can happen. And I want to show you one miracle right now.
My name is Bella, and I'm 21 years old. I was born in Phnom Penh. Yeah. And when I was young, one lady, she tricked me. Like she said that go there to her house. I just go to clean her house or prepare her clothes, something like that. Yeah, and then after she fed me like 1 or 2 months, she sell me. When I was 12 years old, I have been work like a trafficking. They forced me to go to to have sex with guys, and I always don't want to go. And she always hits me, yeah, and blame me. And I worked there about 1 month, and I really hurt. Like, I want to go away from that place, but I cannot go. She sent me there to the house, yeah, and then have the guy come in. Like a day, maybe 5. They pay like $20, and then like he do something bad to me, yeah. I say no and I cry, and I said, please let me go. She told me that if I escape from her place, she will do something to my family. I felt like I'm hopeless. I have nothing. No one care about me, and no one like think that I'm special. And my future, I will think I will die one day, and if I still work like that, I will get disease and I will die. Nothing. And then, like have two foreigners. They called me, my like 2 friends, go to the hotel, and they said they want to have sex like that. Then, like that time, I feel like happy. I don't know why, but I feel different. Yeah. Then we went to the hotel. Yeah, and then we sit and we waiting, and then like have 2 foreigner guys, and they come and they talk with us and ask us about the life, and then we told them, and they asked me and my friend that, do you want to leave the place that you stay? We said yes, we want. And then after that, the police come and receive us. And then I went to Agape, yeah. So I come to live there about 4 years, and they give me a lot of opportunity. Yeah, they love me a lot, and they show me they are come to part in my life. They let me go to school, education, like do what I want to do in the future. They always give me advice, and they always encourage me. Yeah, that I'm special. Like especially Don, he always said I'm special. But before I cannot get it because I think I'm not special. But he always said, and right now I know I'm special. I think God will use me to help other girls like they have been trafficking, and I know that's hurt, and I know they don't want. And so I know that God used me to save them, yeah. And to tell them that just God can help them and loves them, and told them that they are special. And they, if they become in Jesus, they will save and they will have more love.
My allergies are kicking up. See, Bella is a miracle. And today, by the way, Bella is doing just what she said she was going to do. Today, Bella serves with us, and she goes into brothels, and helps rescue girls. She's married to a great Christian young man. And just before we came up over the States a couple weeks ago, we learned she's pregnant with her first baby. Just one thing you should know. See how she mentioned me? Bridget was 100 times better at loving her than I was. What's the difference? I'm a man. And I was the first man that treated her like a daughter. That's why it's so important, men, for us to be involved, right? That's what it's all about. And I'm telling you, I am so excited that you're here. I'm praying that God will take whatever gift or talent that he's given you and you'll use it to his glory and the freedom of many. Thank you very much. God bless you.